Hello everybody and welcome back to our video series on working effectively with Conformiq Creator. My name is Stefan Schulz and I'm the CTO of Conformiq as well as the product owner for Conformiq Creator. Today we're going to talk about working effectively across multiple Creator projects. Please note, as the other videos, this video is not intended to teach you how to model for a given application, but instead it's supposed to show you how you can use various tool features that you may have not been aware of so far. To understand these videos, we recommend that you have a basic understanding of using Conformiq Creator, for example, that you have attended or passed our online Conformiq Greenbelt training. So let's get started. What we're going to talk about in this session is basically, as you progress in your deployment, you will probably see the need that after working with one project, you will want to work with more projects for testing your application, and how exactly can you work in this scenario effectively. So we're going to talk about the basic concept of an Eclipse workspace and projects, where basically a workspace is just a folder for your Conformiq Creator projects. And then each project contains self-contained information of the files that belong to the project that you generate tests from, etc. Then we're going to introduce a very important concept that you probably have not heard about, which is Creator structure diagram libraries. So this is a mechanism that allows you to share very effectively definitions done in structure diagrams, such as screens or custom actions, between other projects and even between other users. So let's go to the tool and talk about workspaces and projects. So here you see our environment with one single project right now in our so-called workspace. So the more projects you add, the more you will see them listed here. Actually, the counterpart to this on the file system is that you see that wherever you open up Creator and say, this is my workspace, in this case, workspace video, right? You see the projects with a file folder. And if you open that up, you see all the other files that are actually in this project. Maybe an interesting folder to point out also is this .metadata folder, which you don't see in our product. You can only see that in Windows Explorer. Here's an important file that sometimes we need from you when we ask you for the log file, the workspace log file. That's actually in .metadata.log. So whenever you have a UI glitch or something, we ask you to send us this .log file so we can reproduce it easily. Anyway, so back to the projects. In the projects, there's a special folder called the model folder. This folder contains all the diagrams that are used for test generation. Now, you may have some cases where, for example, you have some diagrams which are not used really as part of your model that you've loaded, but that have errors or that are incomplete for some reason. An easy trick here to use to circumvent this problem is to just create a folder, call that later, and then you can actually move out any kind of diagram definitions that you know you want some more time for, right? So now this is stored here. It's excluded from test generation. So, and eventually I will move this back in and fix my error, right? Okay. So much about the projects. If you work with a lot of projects, then also sometimes it can be helpful to just, close the projects if you have too many open, because each project consumes memory. In this case, you would, for example, select the project you're currently working on and just click the close unrelated projects, and only the project you're working on will remain open. Okay, and then, of course, it's important once you create multiple projects. So for example, here, please note we have different project types that can be in a workspace. So you can also have so-called transformer projects. They're not for modeling, they're for test execution. So make sure you always select the Creator project if you want to do modeling. Create an empty project. So let's say I want to get started on a new project and have some useful information. Then what I can do, when I want to copy a structure diagram, I always need to grab both the SD and the SL file and click copy and paste. So then we see now I have this login diagram copied to my new project. If now I even want to, let's say, copy a diagram like the login activity diagram, then I can paste it here as well. What you will see happen is that once I copy that, I have an error, and what I see here is there's one place where I'm using a structure diagram definition that I have not covered, and then you get this unknown method error where you have no data here. Now it turns out that this error pop-up that I'm using here is actually defined in this structure diagram. So I need to again copy both SD and SL file, and once I paste it, right, I see it appear because now it can again connect back the activity diagram to the structure diagram. So as we see here, working with the structure diagrams can get a bit hairy when you're using especially GUI stuff. So we have spent some time on making working across multiple projects much easier, which is by introducing structure diagram libraries and starting from version 2.1.5 in Creator. So let's talk about this. So working with structure diagrams. So back here in our kind of scenario, let me post up another scenario that shows you another problem. So these are things you should be aware of that should not happen to you when you work with that. So if you just blindly copy a project and paste it, you get literally a copy of the project. Now, this is maybe helpful in the beginning, but it becomes a bit stressful to work with over a long time, because the modifications that you do will only be known within the project, because projects are self-contained. So to keep these projects apart, actually, I'm going to just delete this folder here. That makes it easier to see that I have different projects here. So let's, for example, assume that we were talking before about this error pop-up. Let's assume we get a change request, and as part of this change request, somebody said, put their cancel button. Okay, fine, we put their cancel button. Right. So now once I change my model, okay, then I get some errors, and this is because in my project there's multiple places where I'm checking the screen, where I'm checking all the widget status, and there's now my cancel button missing. Luckily, I have quick fixes in Creator, which can help me out and fix this very quickly so that all the actions get updated. So fine, I'm done. I'm done, right? But only for this project, because if I go back here in my other project, that has not added the cancel button here. Now, the first temptation may be, let me just put it here, to say, oh, I just put a cancel button, right? And then I have updated my model, and we are back in sync. But what you should remember is that Conformiq actually does not link the objects based on the name. This is why you can change the name and everything works, but actually on an ID that's generated for that button. And when you enter the same element in a different project, it gets a different ID. So now if I save this, I get initially the same error. In the different project that, again, my verifications need updates, I go, okay, let's update those. And now we have the project seemingly in sync, but now see what happens when I copy one of the diagrams, the identical diagram with no changes over. I start to get problems. And what is the problem? The problem here is that it starts to, again, give me problems on this checkout button, because there is this unknown field cancel. But you may say, hey, we have a button there called cancel, right? But actually, these are not the same buttons, right? It's my button from my other project. And basically, I did not copy my definitions over. So, okay, one way of fixing this is saying, like, okay, I need my definitions copied as well. So I will override also the cancel button with the structure diagram. So paste it here. Yes to all. Okay, so now I have my web application fixed, but now I still have the problem that this login diagram that I have is based on my old cancel button. So it asked me to remove the old button and add the new one. And I could do that. But I think we all quite quickly know that there's just no way that this will scale when I try to add different definitions and different diagrams, and I see I need them elsewhere, right? So the thing we came up with is to introduce a concept of a library for structure diagrams, which will make sure that we will always use the same definition everywhere, and there's no problem in keeping multiple projects up to date. So the way how this works is that I basically create a new project, and this is now here, which is now, let's say, web app pages. Okay. This is just a project for maintaining now my structure diagrams. So I now, once I start feeling the need to distribute my application testing across multiple projects, I create this project, and then I just simply copy the structure diagram files in here, right? So now they're here. Now the next step that I can do is I can go to export. Yes, is the import, the export. And then I get this choice for structure diagram library. When I go down this road, basically what I see, it allows me, which structure diagram you want to export. And basically any structure diagram you have, you can put in there or not. And then basically you can go out there and let me just give this right direction. I put this into my, okay, this is actually the wrong one. I want to web app pages. I put my web app pages, structure diagram. Finish. So now what will happen is I will notice there's this funny SD icon with this lock on there, which is basically, you will see there is my structure diagrams just exactly as I've identified them in a read-only mode. So now I can go ahead and copy this to my project instead, right? So I put the structure diagram here. Initially I get errors because now I have these same diagrams twice in my project. So let me get rid of this error. I can just delete the previous diagrams and everything will fall into place. So my diagrams, as I had them, are preserved. They're here. I can open them. But one thing I cannot do is I cannot change them, right? And they're available. And this is the same thing I can do now with the other project. Paste it. Again, I need to remove these diagrams. And now I have one reference point for basically all my pages for my application. And now, whenever I need a change in the application, I need to release a new library. So I go only back to this web app projects and I modify, not here, but of course here, my definitions, as to what I want to change. And then everybody, I will pass this update to that uses it. So this can also be applied across multiple users. If multiple people are modeling different aspects of the same application, then just share the structure libraries, diagram libraries. Please note that in these modifications, you need to be careful. So you should not be really removing any definitions, but rather just adding them, because once you remove them, you get the same problem we saw before, that you get errors in your diagrams that they're missing their definition. And note, it's not the same to remove the button and create the same button again with the same name. It will be a new ID. It will break your diagrams. So just change the definitions or add new ones and you're in good shape, right? So we hope this has been useful for you. So we went and, we hope that this will, help you to drastically become more effective in working in testing a given application across multiple projects. Please always remember, copying, pasting has a lot of drawbacks, and you don't need to be exposed to these. You can simply avoid them by using structure diagrams. So we hope this has been useful for you, and look forward to seeing you in the next session on working effectively with Conformiq Creator.